Phil. Thanks.
Morena koutou. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia makina kina ki uta, kia mataratara ki tai, ehi aki ana te atakura, hei tio, hei huka, hei hauhu, tihei mauri ora.
Right, before we go to apologies, I'd just like to welcome Lynn Morton from Kiwi Rail. It's taken over from Angus, so just in the break time or any other time, just introduce yourself to her and have a yap. So welcome, Lynn. And we've got apologies for lateness from Deputy Mayor Angela O'Leary, who's coming in, I think, at 11 a.m. And then we've got Len Salt online. Welcome, Mayor Len. And I haven't got, is there any other apologies around the committee that know of? No? So can I have a mover and a second of those apologies be accepted? Thank you, Claire, and second Rodney. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Okay, now on to confirmation of the agenda. Has everyone read the agenda and happy to move? Thank you. Second, thanks, Andrew. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Okay, disclosures of interest, if there's no disclosure. Oh, yeah, Claire, I note yours, even though I don't think it is as, you know, Chair, but just in the community transport. Claire has just put a hand up or sent an email to say that she might have a disclosure of interest on that. Go to that. Okay, we'll now move on to none other. So we'll move on to health and safety. Dave, is it? Yeah, I think everyone's and Lynn, you're the new one into the building, so you're the only one that needs any concerns. But yeah, that's pretty much there. Okay, there's no public forum, so we'll go on to what's next, Dave.
We've got a couple of sets of minutes. So we have 2 sets of minutes for confirmation or receipt. So today we're looking to confirm the minutes of the previous meeting of the Regional Transport Committee, which was 6th December, which seems a long time ago now. And we're receiving the minutes from the Future Proof Public Transport Subcommittee held on the 21st of February.
So if there's no matters arising, can I have a mover and a seconder for the first one, the Regional Transport Committee? Thank you, Jenny. And seconder? Yep, thank you. And all those in favour? Those against? Carried. And then for the Future Proof Public Transport Subcommittee, thanks Angela, and thanks Eugene, second. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Okay, on to the Directors' Report. Welcome, Brian and Nigel.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, committee members. I will, through the Chair, take the report as read, but maybe just focus on a few highlights. And you've both obviously got myself and Brian here for any questions that members may have. So this Director's Report identifies probably half a dozen items for the members' consideration. The quarterly road safety statistics, which we'll go over very briefly shortly, and just notes some updates that members will be aware of, topics that have come up recently, including bikes on buses. There's an update on development of the Bus Driver Fund, and then just pointing out some key work programs that are going to be coming up over the course of this year for members' attention, including work that's being undertaken on the bus contract renewals program, development of Te Huia, and we're going to be redeveloping the regional public transport plan. In terms of road safety statistics, there's just been a few updates there. Over the last 5 years, we've seen an average of 60 fatalities on our roads since 2020, just with a note that there have been a little bit of data impacts still residual in that time period as a result of COVID-19. What we have done there is assess, and again, I won't read through all the data that's in there, but identified the various characteristics of crashes that have been occurring in the Waikato. And when taken into account the average fatality over the last 5 years is a 25 to 39-year-old male driver travelling on a state highway in a 100k zone. I did just check this morning to check the statistics. As written at the time, there were 6 road fatalities in Waikato. Looking at the MOT data this morning, that has just been uplifted to 7. And again, with the overrepresentation that we have as a region for these fatal crashes occurring on our network, we are going to be developing an updated road safety strategy this year. We've had an update on bikes on buses, as had been reported on previously. Waikato Regional Council has been working with our operators to do an audit of those of their fleets. Transit have come back and confirmed that 4 vehicles need some remedial work to bring them up to standard, and Kinetic have come back and said that actually their fleet is all okay, and that in fact both companies though still do need to apply for an exemption, apologies, to make sure that they can reintroduce bikes on buses. Additionally, our ops team are working with local authorities for proposals to make an application through the Bus Driver Fund. As noted there, the Bus Driver Fund was designed to support working environments for bus drivers and support recruitment and retention. 2 potential proposals have been identified. First for safety lighting around bus shelters in Hamilton City, and then also for toilet facilities for drivers in Tokoroa. Identifying the projects that are coming up in 2025, as mentioned earlier, we've got 3 in particular that are going to be of particular note, 4 actually, because there's a separate paper on national ticketing that is on the agenda. But we are working through the bus contract renewals process to support the delivery of public transport services. And again, noting the overlap between some of the membership of this committee and the work of the Future Proof Public Transport Subcommittee. Reports will be taken to both committees over the course of this year, and some of the meeting dates that have been identified for overlap are just provided in the report. Additionally, Te Huia is our public transport rail service, is also undergoing a program of work to support the continuation of that service beyond the end of the trial period in April 2026. And we're looking at undertaking a business case or collection of business cases to support that development. Again, this work is also going to support an end of trial review to submit to the NZTA board. The last item of note, and again of interest to this committee and Future Proof Public Transport Subcommittee, is the preparation of the Regional Public Transport Plan that we will be looking at redeveloping. Again, the strategic front end of this document is considered sound. There is some work that is required to update the technical components of that, including a unit structure review, which will be undertaken shortly and be able to report back to this committee and Future Proof. At that point, I might just leave that update there and receive any questions from members through the chair. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Nigel, for that report. Yeah, there's a number of things. Yeah, the road safety statistics is always a sobering one. So, yeah, appreciate you getting the data on that. Noting that the typical road trauma in paragraph 12 is travelling on the state highway at 100k zone, and noting the decision paper today around speed limits. Yeah, what more could we do within the Waikato to I don't know, lower that statistic?
If it's okay, I might defer to Brian on that one, being our resident expert in that space, but thank you for that question.
Thanks. Through the chair, we had a Waikato Road Safety Forum last week here at WRC with a lot of the players from around the region. We spoke broadly around the safe system approach to road safety, which we are looking to bring a workshop back to this committee later in the year. But we had a really good conversation around what's within our control, what's within the control of central government and central government agencies, and we're looking to develop a plan in that space. The other thing to say in that space really clearly is that we need to be taking an evidence-based approach. The things that we have traditionally been doing for road safety and that don't have that evidence-based approach, we should be looking really closely at those things to make sure that we do get a return on our investment, sort of thing. So the strategy itself will have an action plan, but how we work with our territorial authorities in that space will be key, and looking forward to actually having a sound way of managing road safety in the Waikato. So that's in my head, that'll be some sort of a governance arrangement involving territorial. So there is no silver bullet to road safety. There's a range of things that we need to do, but we need to make sure that those things that we do are connected and address the safety risk in a joined up way. You can't have one agency doing this thing, another one doing the other thing, and never the two shall meet. That's just that's completely inefficient and doesn't deliver the outcomes that we want. So the safe system approach is the way to go.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, I noticed recently travelling between Hamilton and Auckland, the increased police presence. And one thing I found interesting was what I always tell people in my car. You know, you see one traffic officer and you slow down and then everyone speeds up. But there was like 4 in a row and it was, they were stopping people like nothing else. You know, they were staggered down the highway and really effective in punitive measures, I suppose you'd say. But yeah, people after that, for the rest of the journey, the speeds were lowered. Yeah, people responded.
Yeah, there's a real general deterrence effect by seeing police on the roads. What we should be doing is magnifying that with our promotion of the fact that police are enforcing in record numbers. We know that people fear more being caught by the police than they fear being involved in a crash, because being involved in a crash is not a real thing to them, to most people anyway. And so that's where we should be focusing some of our efforts in terms of our promotion of road safety.
I just had a couple of other questions on 2 other things. The bikes on buses. Nigel, you mentioned that transit has some work to do. Just the cost around that. Is that being absorbed into the contracts, or what's the funding on that?
If I may defer to Trudy on that one, who's been engaged with them on that.
Through the chair, just in response, we're working closely with Transit around the costs for those modifications. The conversation hasn't taken place as yet, but we have a steering group booked for this week, so that's an agenda item that we will pursue with them.
Thank you. I'll leave it there.
Trudy. Okay, Andrew.
This is on. Cool. Perfect. Kia ora all. Question from me, I guess, across a number of these items where there's NZTA involvement, and just looking to make sure that you've got the right supports from us across those. So thinking of the bikes on buses as well. More of a note, just let me know if you need some more discussions with us. And then just a comment on the road safety you mentioned before, Brian, making sure we're represented in there as well, so we can add some value given the knowledge of the complex speed rule that we're in the process of implementing as well, given that speed is obviously one component of this.
Thanks, Andrew. Any other questions for Nigel and Brian? If not, we've got a resolution here that the director's report be received. Can I have a mover in a second for that? Thank you, Claire, and second, Kevin. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thanks, Nigel and Brian. The next on the agenda is the national ticket. Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah. I'll get Phil to just give a update on the State Highway 3. We had a meeting last Tuesday. So there's a video of the Mount Messenger. It's actually quite impressive, the work that they've been doing. So
Yeah, so just quickly, this group has been meeting every 6 months for many, many years, and had its meeting again last week. So just a couple of quick shots of the meeting. This is going to work. So this region is represented by our chair and RTC deputy chair, as well as several staff, and Waitomo District Council attend these meetings as well. This one was in a community hall, and they change from time to time. But we had a look through the Mount Messenger project in the weather that turned immediately the second we went outside. But for those of you who haven't been along State Highway 3, there is an enormous project underway to redirect traffic away from a very steep uphill through a very tight tunnel on a corner and then down a steep grade. And the approach that's been taken to this project is very interesting. So massive cable car is brought with the equipment in. There's no road into sections of this. So from one end, you can see the route starting to form through natural bush, and then the other side you can see the commencement of work to open up what will be a significant tunnel through the area. And we've got a quick video to show you of that. This is a piece of work that the agency team are developing, and it's not yet finished or uploaded to YouTube, but it will be shortly. So this shows from a drone the image of the construction site, as well as what the tunnel will look like when it's finished. Team, there will be audio added to this and a whole range of more detail provided. These are huge cuts through very difficult terrain. There's a bridge that's constructed here, which hasn't been started yet, and then the work on the other side is well underway. So this is the section that I had one of the photos from here of the work site leading up to the tunnel. That's roughly 5 meters, I think he said, inside the tunnel already. They're chiseling it out as it goes, so it's not a tunnel boring machine. And then this is what the new tunnel will look like. Come through to the other side and yes. The vehicle numbers are relatively low compared to other parts of the region. It's a resilience investment rather than a congestion investment. It's only a couple of 100 meters, I think. It's not huge. No. No, it's just the one. So currently, all of that you can see is been craned in, and it doesn't have a haul road in. It's in natural bush without any connection to roads either way. So all of that effort is being run off the cable car. So yeah, there we are, Chair. Just a quick overview of that project for those of you who haven't seen it.
The main driver behind that is that, you know, it's been a long project, is that, you know, if State Highway 1 is closed, then State Highway 3 is the next artery that goes down through the middle of the North Island, especially for freight that goes through. So the importance of that. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the national ticketing system. And I think we've got you, Phil, have we?
Yes.
Or we got Brian?
No, I'll start this one off. So we wanted to give the committee an update on the work that has been underway on the transition from our regional B card platform ticketing system into the national ticketing system. At the time this report was written, we have identified that it's due to launch in our region before the end of 2025. You may have seen some media last week and over the weekend that suggests those timeframes are being reassessed, and the agency will inform us at the right time when they have a date or a window for our region. But in effect, the Auckland, Wellington and Christchurch regions are working individually, and then the regional consortium of B-card ticket platforms, which is all of the other regions combined, are working together as a regional consortium to be represented at the governance group and to roll the project out across all of those B-card regions in a smooth transition. The report really is just to provide you with an update on the packages of work that we are planning, and some of those are already underway, and we plan to bring a report to the June meeting of this committee with clarification on a lot of the policy matters related to the transition. One of those is that our regional PT plan includes a policy that at the time of launch of national ticketing, cash would be removed from our services. So that's one thing we want to just bring to the committee and just have a final check-in with you on. But there is a full technology transition package. There is a detailed program between us and the other members of the regional consortium, but also the agency's Motu-Move team. There's a comprehensive communications plan, both at a national level and at a regional level, that we'll need to create and work to roll out in an integrated way with the providers at the time that they commence their work in this region. It's a journey that's been underway for many, many years. It's good to see us at this point. There is more work to do, but the report really is intended to just get you to a place where you understand that something is happening here, and that we'll bring you more information as this project rolls out. So other than that, happy to just take any questions.
Yeah, clear.
Yeah, I was interested in the amount of cash that currently is sort of collected as part of it, you know, like what percentage of the trips would it be?
I don't believe I think it's about 20%.
Oh,
10%.
that's high. That could be quite a big change then for people.
It will be a
Yeah.
change for some of our customers, certainly, and in different parts of the region, we have different levels of cash that are offered for fares as well. So we'd need to think carefully about how we bring those customers along with us for this journey.
Yeah, yeah. So you're confident that the program that you've got about that transition, will sort of cater to that?
Yes,
Yeah.
and that's why it's important that we talk about it now, because that isn't an issue for several other regions. So Canterbury is going through the same transition. They will remove cash. And
So
we'll
we can
learn
work
from
with
them. They'll be ahead of us.
Yeah.
So yes, it's part of the thinking we have to do to make sure that that's part of it.
That's cool. I'm pretty excited that we're actually getting there, because it's a really important feature that makes it so much more convenient to use. Yeah, thank you.
Angela.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this is such an exciting piece of work. Are we the first country in the world to move to a complete nationwide one system of?
I believe we will be. This is a platform that the provider here has rolled out the Oyster card in London and platforms around the rest of the world, but I don't believe that any entire country has moved to one platform as yet. It's my understanding. You might have a
Look, I don't know that exactly, but it makes absolute sense, doesn't it? Being able to just tap on as you go, and where it has been trialled to date, I've heard verbatim comments just about how easy and simple and excited people are to actually experience something like this, and largely heard that there's a younger group that is starting to use public transport a lot more than they would have as well as a result.
That's very good. Just probably my questioning, yep, looking forward to the policy matters coming in June. I've had queries from a couple of people around the concessions continuing. There's a little bit of nervousness that, they might not transition, but reassured people that I'll get back to them in due course. And then the other thing is around there's some communication out there for people not to put money on their B cards at the moment because B cards are stopping. And so, yeah, I just don't want the pressure to be on bus drivers, people with no balances on their cards or low balances, and then that affects our fare box recovery, which is very critical at the moment with the current government. So you're just wondering, with the communications plan, is that being handled by NZTA more so than us, like from a consistent nationwide communications plan, and whether there's any opportunity for us to, I suppose, wrap around and provide our own comms as well to ensure that, we're not missing out on fare box recovery with people getting a free ride all the time.
I might start with the concessions actually, just quickly, as you raised that. So one of the changes that this platform brings is that you could travel with a credit card, you can travel with a Motu Move card, and that can operate on your phone. There's a whole range of differences to this platform, and one of the issues is how do you establish a concession and then allow it to be used across multiple ways of buying a bus ticket, because at the moment it's all on the B card. So we've been meeting with the agency's team on this, and that's a conversation that's happening nationally. The message, which is already rolled through the Christchurch Airport bus, which is running live with this platform, is you need to tag on and tag off with the same thing, whether it's your phone or a card or the Motu Move card. And at a concession level, that can be loaded onto any one of those things, and that you need to use that thing in order to get the concession. So there's a piece of work going on at a technology level around that. One of the questions we've had is around things like employer concessions and other products, as well as the super golds and the accessibility. We have been advised that they will all continue and there is no risk to those, and they can be loaded in the same way as any other concession on an account. So that should dispel that concern. The discussion about terms and conditions changing on the B card led to each of the regional consortium councils advertising, whether it's on Facebook or in a newspaper article, about some of the terms and conditions changing. And the reason for that change was to get clear early on that the point at which the B card is terminated in your region and the transition to Motu Move happens, that B card becomes void, and the region that your card is registered in and the launch date of Motu Move for that region is the point at which all of the cards in that region need to be ready to transfer over. So the confusion that caused is that that's happened, a year or 2 years earlier than it maybe was required to. But what it has led to is people thinking that that will disappear rapidly and that there will be no ability for them to take any balance off those cards at the time of transfer. And one of the really key parts of our communications plan is going to be, how do you manage a refund or a transfer to the new card? So that work is well underway as an issue for us to need to resolve early. Now, the final part of your question, which is around national versus regional, is important in that case because there are aspects of this change that are national, and there is a solid plan in place and being developed for that. But there are aspects like refunds or like different types of concession that will be regional. So there's very, very much going to be a two-way approach. And that's why the coordination is really, really key, so that we have clear roles with the agency and the parties are saying the right things at the right time. Andrew wants to.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, Phil, actually, I'm not as close to this given it's a national program being rolled out, whether there's a bus driver education component in the interim as well as people start hearing about this, allowing them to have the tools to respond appropriately.
Very much so. And the chart that we saw at a workshop recently talked about 15 weeks out, 12 weeks out, 10 weeks out, 4 weeks out, so on. And very much the driver piece was part of that well before the change, so that can be managed. Now, I guess the question is, your question around us having unclear communications out there now, you would like us to put something out now just to make sure people are clear on that? Or?
I guess just re-emphasise the timing. I've heard of certain schools within Hamilton, within their communities, that they're not putting balances on their B cards, so their kids are riding for free. And these are perhaps schools that are not challenged financially. So, yeah, I'm just wondering whether there's some sort of poster or something you could put up in the bus to say, hey, you still need money on your B card until such time that we change. So, yeah, keep those balances up so we can keep the revenue coming in.
Yeah, happy to take that as an action.
Just one thing further, if I may. Yeah, within the Waikato, our accessibility concession is looked at as being, best practice. I was just wondering if there's maybe an opportunity to nationalise what we do here and through this O2 Move transition. Whether the disability, I understand our accessibility rep is not with us today, but whether there's any opportunity to advocate for other regions to perhaps provide some of the benefits that we do.
So we have an item on the agenda later providing an update on the work happening in that sector. So perhaps that's a question we could hold until.
Thank you.
Angela.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, putting a sign on a bus, because if you're not looking, you don't see. I just wonder if there's an opportunity to talk to the schools or send a message out to the schools so that it goes out in their newsletters or whatever, like it's so parents know, like it's sort of spread out, whether it's to the schools in the city, because these are the people that are most affected, right? So it perhaps needs to be more directed to reassure people to do what they do. It's not me telling operations what to do, but I just feel that we've got to look at effective ways of getting that message out there.
Yeah, thank you. Probably following on from Claire's comments earlier, and also Angela's around promoting and advertising. Don't underestimate the effects of going cashless and the teething problems that will have. Waikato District went cashless in the offices about 4 years ago, and we still have a few teething problems, but at the start it was pretty horrific, the issues and the effects it has on communities. And it was actually certain pockets of communities that were really badly affected, so it will have an impact.
I agree. And in the transition from what was previously the bus set card to the B card, that was a significant task for us, was to manage that process as well. So,
Maxine?
Thank you. A couple of things. In picking up on Eugene and Claire's point around the cashless, good to have heard you say that Canterbury will be doing that prior to us, so we can have a look at what learning come out of that and apply those for best practice. My assumption is that we would be working with community houses, grey power, groups that we know who might be challenged to be using a card kind of system, and to know also if we would be supporting that with how to work the process, and that being personnel to be able to do that and to walk people through the process so that they're not just left with a set of instructions potentially.
Yep, that's a good idea.
Yeah. And then the other, oh God, it's gone out of my brain actually. I'll leave it for now and maybe pick it up offline. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Maxine. If there's no other questions, got a resolution here for National Ticketing System, a report be received. Going to move and a seconder for that. Thank you, Claire, and a seconder. Thanks, Eugene. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Okay, now we've got the RTC submission for the private share. Brian, is it? Are you presenting this, or Nigel as well?
Good morning again, Chair, committee members. So the report that you have in front of you now, just with regards to the private share submission, this actually reflects a submission that was developed under the delegated authority of the Chair and signed off on the 31st of January. So members may recall having a look at it. Just some highlights on that, and again, happy to take any questions, but just noting that the primary purpose of this was to make sure that we, as a region, had an opportunity to comment on the proposed private share targets that have been proposed by NZTA to increase the contribution of private share towards public transport funding. The RTC submission itself focused on, I think, the wider regional aspects of it. So potentially in this case, it was focusing on potential restrictions or curtailment of local government decision making with regards to public transport fares and prices, and just making sure that we have expressed concern that exists for, I guess, a changed focus that appears through these changes to shift public transport services from providing a social good to more of an economic consideration. That was captured in the submission, but it should also be noted that Waikato Regional Council continues to work with NZTA on this in terms of how we can work towards achieving those private share targets. This was discussed at some length through the Waikato Regional Council annual plan budget considerations. And again, looking at the report, paragraph 12 outlines sort of where that landed, including recommended public transport fares increases of 6.4% in 25-26. And this was supported through extensive modelling and quantitative assessment for that. Ultimately, though, we will continue to work with NZTA in terms of achieving those targets over time. So the attachment 1 to this report captures the submission that was signed under delegated authority of the Chair. Through you, Chair, happy to take any questions on that.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, Nigel, it was a well-written submission. But also good news is that, through the Finance Committee, that revenue was up 750,000, and it didn't affect with that, with the increase in the fares, it didn't affect, by the looks of it, too much of the patronage. So I think it's, a pretty good steer to the central government that we are, doing our part. So, yeah. Any other questions for Nigel? Yeah, Andrew.
Yeah, less a question, just an acknowledgement. I guess the submission, has been well received, and want to acknowledge Waikato Regional Council staff as well for how they've worked with the team. I know it's a good relationship you're operating there with them, and that's also been really well received through what is, at times a challenging process. So thank you.
Thanks, Andrew, for that. Okay, if there's no other questions, can we have a move and a second for the private share report submission come through, please? Thank you, Kevin, and a seconder. Thank you, Claire. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Okay, on to the RONS program for 2025. Are you presenting that? Oh, yeah. Morning, Jason. Andrew, would you like to introduce Jason if the
Yes.
committee doesn't know?
Yes, I will. So this is Jason Harrison, who some of you will be familiar with. He's been involved with some of your organisations in the past, particularly Hamilton City Council. So Jason's one of our project managers, senior project managers, and is going to provide the part of the update on our road of national significance for Cambridge to Pieriti. So I'll let him introduce himself shortly, and I'll run through the Hamilton Southern Links presentation myself. So in terms of a frame up here, these are good news stories. This is an update we've been asked to provide today to the committee. The relevant councils, directly affected by these roads of national significance have had direct elected members updates in the last month. We were back in this committee room with Waikato Regional Council members only a few weeks ago as well. There's clearly a large amount of projects falling out of the GPS, the government policy statement for land transport, which we're focusing on at the moment. A lot of these are roads of national significance, and we have 5 across the Waikato Bay of Plenty dual region. So we'll talk to the 2 Waikato ones today. They're all at various different development stages in terms of their planning. We'll move to the next slide. Thanks, Dave. So you know what's in the government policy statement, what we refer to as the GPS. We are focused as a strategic priority on economic growth and productivity, and that's where the RONS, Roads of National Significance program, falls from, including Hamilton Southern Links and Cambridge to Pieriti. The GPS also sets out our standards for RONS. So there's some certain expectations around 4-lane grade separated routes, and having really tight project scopes so we can actually move at pace and achieve value for money. And we've heard the term no frills obviously thrown around as part of those as well. There is consideration obviously as well around tolling, where we've been directed that any new road of national significance will be considered for tolling, and a desire around higher speed limit of 110 kilometres per hour. If we move to the next slide, we can just see the distribution of those roads of national significance across the country. Upper North Island has a lot, more than 10. So there's a heck of a lot going on from this region north really and out to Bay of Plenty. Move next to Southern Links, please. So today was just going to give a brief overview on the investment case that we have underway for Hamilton Southern Links, confirm the project scope, talk briefly about the new processes we are using for this project and how we'll engage with council staff, and some timeframes as well. Next slide shows, it's changed a little. Oh, no, there we go. This is a long burning project. So those of you that have been around for some time will have heard of Southern Links for probably more than a decade. And indeed NZTA was purchasing property, securing most of the link many years ago. Southern Links itself, in terms of the NZTA component, is the yellow piece running up that spine in the centre, past the airport, and then out east and west, connecting to State Highway 1 there in the east. Go to next slide. So designations are secured, as I mentioned, years ago, for the Southern Links wider network. So that's both for NZTA and council, largely Hamilton City roading networks within that Peacock growth cell, and the 21 kilometres worth of state highway that was envisaged. That's allowed us to commence work on allow council to commence work on the arterial network. So seen most recently with the opening of Te Ara Peka Peka Bridge last year. There was a form and function review for the state highway component undertaken between NZTA and the councils affected to better understand the changes that have occurred. You know, when there's a long period of time between designation, property purchase, the ups and downs of is the project funded, is it not? We need to actually figure out whether the designation is still fit for purpose, what are the changes that have occurred since that designation was envisaged and put in place, including the Waikato Expressway opening is a major impact there. So that form and function review is obviously going to inform our investment case work that we're doing at the moment. Next slide, please. Just another wee map for those that are interested in graphics that shows some of the areas around Southern Links as well. Move on to the next one. I won't labour too long on this, but this is how we're going to be making decisions around Southern Links. So we've got a series of what we call sprints, which are effectively decision-making portals. So we are, as I mentioned, moving at pace. We want to be decision-led with our project management approach, and that's going to be piloted across most of our RONs. We continue to engage early with councils involved in the early planning stages, and we are committed to still the great outcomes that will benefit councils and their communities. So the decision-led approach effectively means we're looking at doing the right work at the right time to enable the right decision to be made, rather than working right to the end of a process to make a decision. We're identifying what parts of the process can we make a decision and who needs to be involved in that. So delivering deliberate decisions, presenting choices along the way to decision makers when they can be actually influenced. And that will give us better clarity of scope, budget, timeframe, and risk. Move on to the next one. Sorry, is there another slide there, Dave? Yeah. Go forward. That's the one. The project scope has been set by our Values, Outcomes and Scope Committee. So the physical extent for our investment case is from State Highway 1 Waikato Expressway south of Tamahere, where there was, as Councillor Smith from Regional Council pointed out recently, the Tamahere interchange already exists, but there's another interchange envisaged that should not be named the Tamahere interchange, as that map shows. Right across to State Highway 1C, KARAKIA Drive in the west, and includes parts of State Highway 1, 3 and 21 around the airport. Two investment objectives have been set, and they relate to efficient movement and supporting growth. This is one of the few RONs projects that unlocks housing as one of the key components. There are development areas, especially along the northern border there, some potential growth cells. Our investment case will test over the next 6 months or so whether the designation remains fit for purpose with regard to those new RON standards that have been set through the GPS. And if any changes are required, it will update costs, which obviously will have moved on a lot in the intervening time. And it will consider possible revocations of other parts of that state highway network. Narrows Bridge being part of those discussions as well. Covers 3 different territorial authority areas, being Waipa, Waikato and Hamilton City. So have involved all those councils along with Regional Council to date. In our investment case, we'll be looking to prioritise some potential early wins in that as well. We'll move on again, thanks. I don't think I'll go into detail on this one again. It just shows the various parts of the decision-making process in our investment case over the next few months. If we jump to the next slide, please. So, as I mentioned, engaging councils, engaging tangata whenua. We have a tangata whenua working group formed around Hamilton Southern Links. and there's various other stakeholders that we'll be talking to. I know Tamahere Community Committee have mentioned, their desire to be involved. There is an expanded future-proof transport working group which has been stood up with regular, it may even be weekly or fortnightly meetings at a staff level to discuss progress along the way and to help coordinate some of that technical engagement as well, which the relevant council staff members are involved in. And we'll use forums like FPIC to provide updates and enable elected member feedback. So the next steps, which is the next slide. We are working toward an investment case being presented to the NZTA board mid-2025, and there's a number of RONS projects that will be coming to an investment case conclusion at that time as well, and then it's the board's decision to really pick them up and decide what the prioritisation looks like in the phasing across the country, given the dollars that will be in the kitty at the time as well. So whilst this is a good news story, there's not necessarily it's not necessarily going to be a spade in the ground in the next year or anything like that. It needs to be prioritised against a lot of other works. So our team will be working to put the best case forward effectively by that board meeting mid-year. So I'm happy to take any questions on Southern Links, knowing that a few of you have heard that presentation before. And if not, I'll pass on to Jason.
Angela.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew, for the presentation and for the roadshow thing that you did around the councils as well. Hey, I'm just wondering, in regards to Southern Links, seeing as we do look at corridors as a whole and that sort of thing, is it possible on any of the maps that you show in the future just to show how it links, especially on that northwest side of the city through Kahikatea onto rejoining up with State Highway 1 in the north of Hamilton? Just, yeah, otherwise it just seems like there's going to be a heck of a lot of traffic being pushed onto Kahikatea, which it currently already does. So, yeah, just wondering that little missing link, yeah, how that's going to be affected.
Yeah, it's almost more detail on maps in future as the investment case progresses and decisions are made. I'll expect that we can show more detail in that designation route.
Thank you.
Okay, no other questions? Oh, yeah, sorry, Rob.
Just, I'm just thinking about the bridge at Narrows now has become a bit dangerous, especially for trucks. Some of them don't know how to drive trucks. Anyway, but is that in part of the RONS? Obviously, it's the whole project, but would they look at like a piecemeal, just say fixing that corridor? Because basically, if you're an HPMV, you want to get to the state highway to the the expressway. Well, that's the only really way you can go is through the narrow slot.
It could
so
be.
That would be like, to me, that would be almost an urgent. That bridge needs, or something needs fixing there sooner rather than later, before something goes wrong. That bridge, for instance. Yeah, so it's like obviously the RONS is a project over everything, but you just take pieces of road out and say, well, this is urgent, but we'll do this first and then do a bit later. Or
that's what I would expect the investment case to show. If there's a piece that needs to be done earlier, some phasing that can be done earlier, and say it is that end, then I would expect that that's what we're able to do.
No other questions? Then on to part 2, Andrew.
Okay, I'll hand over to Jason. You might want to talk a little bit more about yourself as an introduction.
Okay, yeah, no, thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. So I'm Jason Harrison from the agency. So I hold the role of Project Director for Cambridge to Puerere. I won't give you a boring synopsis of what that actually is, but as a high level, I make the difficult achievable and I turn the improbable into reality. So basically it's a complex project, and so they put in PDs in those particular projects to try and pull them all together. And this one in particular, given the focus that this government has, it's been around for a while, and I'm sure you may have heard of it for a number of years. So it's been around since like the mid-2010s. But with the change of government and a change of priority, all of a sudden something that's been quite a slow burn, it's happening at pace now. And so that does have a big impact, especially on landowners who have been waiting for years to know what's happening in this space. So just really wanting to give you an update of on this particular project, where it's at, where it's heading, and the timeframes that it's working to. So if we could just go to the next slide. Yep. So basically, just picking up what Andrew said, the standard of the road that will be built will be a 4-lane expressway, 110k speed environment. A key outcome that we're looking for is to ensure that there's local connectivity as part of the expressway. So on the map that I'll show you next, if we can go to that slide, we have a couple of local roads that we're extending from the end of the existing expressway from Cambridge. So if you're looking at that map on the left-hand side, where the current expressway ends, and we've got connection to Waikato Expressway, those two orange dotted lines are two local roads that will connect right through to Karapiro Road or the interchange that will be built there to ensure connectivity for locals in that area. The expressway itself is 16 k's long. That first section from the end of the expressway to Karapiro Road, which we call the online section, because it follows pretty much the existing state highway, is 6 k's long. Offline section is the balance of 10 k's, and that will connect back into the current 129 roundabout that's under construction. If we can go to the next slide. We've just got a fly through just to show you. So if technology works, but it doesn't look like it will.
Doesn't sound good.
The side from our comms team that maybe it didn't.
We can share the link.
Yeah. So basically, okay. So this has been a real powerful tool for us to be able to communicate quite clearly to landowners, but just to the general public about the look and feel of the expressway. So this gives you a sense of the scale of it. In an ideal world, when you're delivering projects like this, you may try and do it with a waterfall approach, or you've got key work streams that follow one after the other. Because we're going at pace, what we're doing is the key work streams are being done in parallel. So one of them is consenting, which is currently underway. So commissioners have been appointed. So the approach that we've taken is to use the fast track legislation that was available to us at the time. So that was using the natural built environment interim fast track consenting pathway. So we've lodged under that, and that's managed by the Environmental Protection Authority. So commissioners have now been appointed as of last month, and they're actually on site today doing their site visit of the site. So what that means is that, and I don't have the actual timeframes, but we would expect by the end of this month that they will call submissions from key parties on the project, and that will be for a period of about a month, and then submissions will close, and they will decide whether a hearing is required. So if a hearing isn't required by July this year, we should have consents in place. If a hearing is required, it may be towards the end of August. If we can just go to the next slide. The other key work stream that we're working to is property acquisition. So there's a lot of property to acquire, and we've started those conversations formally with landowners back in August last year. And so those are just continuing in the background, but again, that work stream is on our critical path for acquiring all the land that we need. And the other key work stream we're currently doing at the moment is our detailed design. So that fly through is based on our consenting design that we've lodged. And so there may be some changes that come through as we go through the consenting process, and consents are granted us mid this year. Ideally, what will happen is we will be looking to call tenders for at least a portion of the project. We're not looking to deliver the whole 16 k's at once. So we've identified a higher priority for the online section. So that's from the end of the expressway down to including Karapiro Road, where the interchange will be. And we're looking to let that contract to start physical works by late 2026. Now, I've given this presentation a number of times internally, and just to give you a feel for the urgency or the focus that this project, along with the other Bronze and Wave 1 have, is that I'm always being challenged, are we going as fast as we can, Jason? Are we making sure we're being quite efficient in how we approach the project? And so there's a balance there. You don't want to go too fast, so you start making mistakes and you're not bringing people along. But at the same time, we do need to be moving quite quickly through the process. So our communications plan and trying to communicate with people and interested parties is something that we haven't always got right, but it's something that we've got a high focus on. It's the reason why I'm here today, just to update you all. Next slide, please. As part of this project, we have been asked to look at tolling. So there is a separate team that's focusing on tolling, and one of the key criteria was whether there would be a practical and free alternate route to the expressway. And with the construction of the offline section, there will be, with the existing state highway, becoming that practical free alternate route. So that's a piece of work that's currently underway. And I think through the course of this year, they'll continue their investigations, and we'll know more throughout the year as that progresses. Next screen. So back in the early 2020s, we also undertook to do some interim safety improvements along the section of State Highway. And that was the, I suppose, the installation of wire rope barrier, turnaround areas. And at the time, there was talk at this particular intersection putting in a roundabout. Now, with the change of government, the change of priority, that roundabout was put in there when we didn't have certainty around when the long-term project was going to start construction. Now that we've got that certainty around late 2026, we won't be building a roundabout there. We will be doing some interim safety measures in terms of road marking, static and electronic signage. So that's all gone in as of last month. And we'll just be monitoring that. We've been communicating that to interested parties and those people in this area who have been told in the past that a roundabout would be constructed. But the reality is, even if you started construction now, by the time it's finished, it may not even be finished by the time the long-term project starts physical works. So I think I've got one more slide. The 129 intersection, so you'll be familiar with a roundabout going in there, which is currently under construction. It's a 4-legged roundabout. The 4th leg will connect into the long-term Cambridge to Perere project. The other 3 legs have now been completed and on their permanent alignment, and there's a number of activities now just to finalise and finish that roundabout off. So we're on track to have that completed by mid-year as well. Next slide. I think it's just any questions.
Thanks, Jason. I think we've got the video going. So, Dave, if you want to play that, and then we'll go to questions after that. Is there any?
So those of you who are familiar, you've got the Newcombe and Lockley roads, are those 2 side roads that will then extend all the way through to KARAKIA Road. So there'll be no direct access onto the expressway, and all local traffic needs will be serviced from those 2 there. We're coming up to KARAKIA School and the local KARAKIA Road, which has now been turned into an interchange. So the Settlers Hall remains. Now, I've had this question asked a number of times, what happens to the mobile service station? Because we don't show it on there, doesn't mean it's not going to be there. We're just having those conversations with the landowners, but we've just removed it for simplicity of showing the interchange here. So this interchange represents the southern end of the online section. So this will be the first part of the project that we are looking to start construction next year. As we move through this now, we'll be going into the offline section. This offline section has a number of bridges in it. It's to allow us to bridge over highly valued ecological areas that we have in the offline section. So we come over the brow of the hill now, head towards the 129 roundabout. One thing I didn't mention is that the online section, we've allowed for a 3 to 4 year construction period for that. All going well, the offline section will start a year later, and that has a 5 to 6 year construction time frame. So all going to plan by, say, mid or by 2032, 33, we should have completed the 16 Ks.
Has anyone driven through the roundabout the last week since the sculpture's been in?
Yep.
So, yeah, Te Punarangi Mārie sculpture has just been installed there. And a really cool backstory, we were at the blessing last week with the 96-year-old, was he the designer? He was present, Uncle Fred, who actually grew up about 3 kilometres from there and remembers the Hora Dam and running around in the place of where the roundabout now is when it was a paddock barefoot. So it's some pretty cool context behind that installation when you do see it.
Clear.
Yeah, thanks. It's great to see it progressing. It means a lot to Waipa. Yeah. I've got 2 questions. First one about property acquisition. Like if you haven't already got those over the line, there's some more incentives for land sales offered, you know, for these kind of projects talked about by Minister Bishop, you know, 15% or something. Yeah. Is that going to apply to this project? Do you know, will that be helpful to I suppose, getting the landowners, to be happy to sell to you and things like that? Is it going to apply?
It's probably too early to say
Okay.
with that, given the recent announcements. We'll have a team figuring that out at the moment.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. And the second question I wanted to ask was around the water supply, because when you came to Waipa, you said that you'd been trying to find a way to be able to use the water from the Waikato River, but it hadn't worked out. Like, have you been able to make any other progress on a different source or anything?
Not in the 2 weeks since I've given you that update, but just so people are aware, there's this little invasive golden clam in Lake Karapiro, and we need to remove it from any water that we use on the project. So the Cambridge to Piriri project actually covers 2 catchment areas, the Waikato where the golden clam currently resides, but also it goes into the Hauraki area where it doesn't. And we don't want this project to be the cause of its spread in the region. So we've been trialling, I suppose, different ways to treat water from Lake Karapiro. We haven't come up with our preferred option yet, and it's currently underway. So it's just I suppose, a watching brief for you all here. That's something that we are real. There's a risk to the project and something that we are looking to address.
Thanks, Claire. No other questions that we've got a resolution. Oh, sorry.
That's right. Just a question around the cycleways. I know when initially NZTA member came in and spoke about the road, and they were initially going to plan for cycleway on the expressway. I presume common sense has prevailed that just is an expressway and that the cycleway will carry on the old road. Is that the intention, or have they?
Look,
what's
with
the position there with the bikes?
Yeah, so with the cycleways, there is provisions in this project to provide cycleways from Hydro Road.
Yes.
Using the local road to connect to interchange to service the school and the community in that area. So that's the only cycleway facilities that, or shared path facilities that will be provided. We are future-proofing the corridor for future cycleways on the local roads.
Yes.
So that's the focus that we've taken.
Yeah, because I guess it was just that the old highway will become a local road and will be quite a nice cycle trail to hook in wherever those trails go. So that's great. Thanks for that.
Okay, thanks, Jason and Andrew. We've got a mover and a second for the RON's report to be accepted. Thanks, Andrew, and second, Rodney. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? Carried. Okay, we'll have a 10-minute break till 10 to 11. So we'll see you back here at 10 to 11. We'll open the doors to get a coffee and through there.